So next up is a panel on emotional intelligence and mental health, and how can it be used as a digital therapeutic? I kind of touched on it briefly. This might seem really futuristic, but these panelists are going to be asking, how can we leverage AI, artificial intelligence, to support the mental health needs of our community? Please welcome Sharad Devarajan. He's a producer, media entrepreneur. He's an AI professor at Columbia. And he's also the co-founder of Liquid Comics, and now it's called Graphic India. And my dear friend, Michael Rauws, is founder and CEO of X2AI, a startup which is specializing in emotional AI. And his mission is to make quality mental health affordable and accessible. Please welcome Sharad and Michael.
Every 40 seconds, we lose somebody to suicide globally. And this has been just before the pandemic. And after the summit last year, we decided we want to do something about it. It is impossible to look at the challenge we have in the world today with mental health to address it with like physical resources. So we embarked on a journey to look at technology. So I'm really happy to have two of my good friends here today to chat about the role of emotional AI and mental health. So I want to start this conversation first. First of all, Michael, welcome. Sharad, welcome. And I want to start this conversation with Michael. You know, we really looked at X2AI as a way to kind of look at intervention for mental health. We said, let's kind of deploy a chat engine and let's see what happens. And can we really intervene and help with suicide prevention? And I just was looking at the stats he shared with me today, which is remarkable. We helped over 78,000 people. We had about 6 million plus messages exchanged on the platform. 3 million plus minutes of actual conversation, and 3,000 plus suicide de-escalations. So from my perspective, I feel what started off as a moonshot to see how can technology help really played a big role in helping communities. So I want to really kickstart this conversation with your perspective on how do you see AI, chatbots, mental health coming together, and what do you see as the future?
Yeah, thank you so much. Poonacha, that's a great overview. And really what we focus on is making sure people get access to the care they deserve. And on a very high level, if you just look at the statistics of the number of people who need mental health support throughout their lives, you'd get to a number around 1 in 4, 1 in 5. However, if you look at how many trained professionals there are available, it's more around 1 in 50. And to bridge that gap, we really need to figure out like different strategies of making this more accessible and really just to empower the people to have these chat conversations that allow them to reflect on their thoughts and get some guidance here and there, and that way feel better. And it's just wonderful to see, especially at such a huge scale as you just talked about, that we managed to come together and put this out there for everyone and really have a global, worldwide audience from people using it all the way from Africa to South America to parts of Asia and Europe. It's just wonderful to see that all around the world, because of the reach, of course, of Deepak Chopra promoting it, and that just, so many people signed up and managed to get the access to care that they deserve.
So before I ask the next question, I want to ask this question to Sharad. So I think, Sharad, once again, thank you for joining us. You know, the key for AI is having a lot of data, a lot of information. And today, when I look at it, obviously looking at the camera right now, we are on Zoom. We can look at the facial expressions, the micro expressions. We can kind of read the heart rate. We can look at the voice tone, the pitch. There's a lot of data which we can use. And once again, here comes the question of the ethics of AI. So for us to really do good in this world, we need a lot of data, people to share a lot of data. What is your perspective on AI and ethics, especially when it comes to mental health and emotional regulation, making decisions based on this data?
It's a challenging time because the technology is almost moving faster than we as human beings can really figure out what to do with it, right? So the disruptions are going to happen so fast over the next decade that these technologies will transform everything we know about being human in some ways, right? And how we interact with people. So we can look at it on three big questions we need to ask. Can we do it? Where is the science telling us what we can get to right now? Should we do it? This sort of ethical component of are we ready for this technology at this moment? and inevitably when we do it, because as human beings, we've always found as soon as we can do it, we do it, right? So I think that the framework should be asking those questions, but where we are right now is a lot of the should we do it. And I think, in particular, I think the work that, that's being done by people like Michael is groundbreaking. I mean, it really is solving a direct need. The question we have to ask ourselves is, as this technology moves very quickly, it starts to ask two things. For the first time, we can not only be able to, let's say, use data in a way where we just understand what's happening on the external. We can now suddenly use data in a way where we can understand what's happening to a human being on the internal. And that changes things very dramatically. It starts with wearables, right? But imagine an AI sensibility that you could walk down in a dictator's kind of regime, and you could say all the right things, but when you look at a photo, your internal body and biorhythms are triggered in a way where they know you don't like the dictator, and you're suddenly put on a watch list, right? So suddenly your thoughts are not your own. So we are moving very quickly into a world like that. I'd say with chatbots, what's interesting right now is as we spend a lot of time in the virtual being space, we see a lot of technologies moving with AI and this concept of virtual beings, right? And certainly chatbots are one area where there's a number of chatbots being created right now, which, are scarily human, right? In the ways that they can interact with people and the way that they interact with so many people to get aggregate sets of data to become even more defined for that one individual that they're communicating with now. So you can imagine a scenario where we are interacting with a virtual being, whether it be a chatbot or something like where Soul Machines and other companies are creating, where it's much more lifelike that we're interacting with, where they are communicating and engaging with you in a way that no human being ever could hope to, because they have a mastery over engaging with maybe millions of people, learning from that data in real time, and ultimately optimizing that engagement just for you in a way that goes far beyond any human being ever could. Right. Now, what does that create? Does that create a relationship with something that isn't human, that feels more, that you're more emotionally attached to? And what happens if the monetization of those things are driven in the same way we see social networks, where it's driven on pure engagement, where the goal is not your well-being, but staying engaged with that virtual being? So we start to go down a slippery slope as the technologies evolve, and incredible benefits, right, but also incredible dangers if we ask ourselves, is it okay if our kids aren't playing video games in the future, but actually engaging with people they believe are as real as themselves, but are actually optimized to engage with them in a way that is very artificial, right? So, I think as we move into AI, we are still always going to a question of artificial intelligence versus artificial consciousness. We're very far from getting to a stage of artificial consciousness, but there will be an intelligence that surpasses us very quickly. And, an artificial intelligence is a very interesting thing to look at, right? So, yes.
And I think that just riffing on that, today we look at, I think MIT had this particular paper where they could look at the COVID cough, and your cell phone looking at the voice could detect whether you have COVID or not, right? Yeah. And there's a good thing and a bad thing. The bad thing is also the false negatives, right? So I think you have positives. I think how do you look at some of these things? And what is the ethics behind making decisions? I think companies like Beyond Verbal can look at cardiac disease, respiration, nervous disease. I think when you look at all these disease analysis using AI, it gets into a very fine line of what is crossing the boundary.
Well, I'd even ask one question to that, Poonacha. The question is, look, we can all agree that we're moving very fast in automated cars, right? And the system of driving down a street and having every other car on the road be in one complete system that's working in tandem and unity would be much more intricate and much more efficient than what human beings can do, right? We can appreciate that and kind of understand where that would go. So imagine artificial intelligent healthcare system. That artificial intelligent doctors everywhere around the world, it is really one system. Someone in a village somewhere is getting sick, some new kind of cure is discovered somewhere, or some new genetic quirk is discovered somewhere, instantaneous, in real time, around the world. Every single artificial intelligent doctor completely understands what is there and is able to kind of augment and solve that problem. That's a huge benefit for humanity. But do we allow such data to flow so freely now? And are we open to that in an aggregate? Because the benefits would certainly outweigh the costs.
Absolutely. So Michael, I think when I look at PV on your background, it reminds me of Samantha from the movie Her. And I think I've built a relationship now with PV. PV knows me intimately. I know in Rosalind Picard's lab, there's research being done on keyboard, the way you type and the rate of typing is a good predictor of emotion. And when you look at technology and the roadmap ahead, what are some of the things you're looking at, and what can the industry in general learn from what you've learned?
Yeah, I believe it's really important to make sure we do the right thing. So like the discussion just evolved around ethics. We started out as a research firm over 10 years ago. And really what we started out on is always looking at the ethical side of things, making sure we achieve the right goals. So our goals, what we do also with this population, we tie a research study to it. So we looked actually at 4,000 people of this entire group as a sample size to look at the start, let's do depression or anxiety screening. And in a couple of weeks, let's do it again to look at how much did their symptoms go down. Because really, we are there to make their lives better. And that's really our goal. And in this way, like we make sure that we get the view of our ethical board. And our ethical board is comprised of not only psychiatrists, psychologists, or doctors, but also people from industry and, of course, the people using the system. And in that way, we really make sure we set the bar high in the industry. And we also do several publications. So we have about 10 publications in academic papers, 10 more publications on its way. And we also published an ethical paper that really sets the standard for joining together standards within AI about ethics and standards from the American Psychological Association, merging those two to really make sure we bring forward a responsible service that everyone benefits from. And in that way, we really stay on that straight path towards positive impact for as many people as possible.
So I think I want to kind of, once again, thank you, Michael. Thank you, Sharad. So I believe in the future, we will be able to look at the human as a whole. My eyes look at my pupil dilation, my facial expression, my voice tone, my electrodermal activity, my steps and movements, and then come into an integrative solution to predict my state of mental health. So thank you, and look forward to our ongoing engagement.
Thank you.